We soon embark on the first exploration of the lava caverns, a tract beset by crag and fire, yet laced with greenery. Day 17. Botanic and zoologic studies have yielded no insight into the biota's survival in such an environment. As humans, we must curb our hubris. Between our research and science, it is all too easy to fall into a comforting delusion. We are the great explorers, the conquerors whose ingenuity will measure the land and constrain entropy, whose instruments and models bring order into a world gone wild. Nothing could be further from the truth. The world hasn't gone wild. The wild is its natural state, and we are the anomaly. Nature is not ours to understand, and it has many reminders in place to ensure we never forget just how fragile and ignorant we still are, despite our efforts and achievements. One such reminder is the zone designated as the Lava Caverns, a coastal area of the volcanic peninsula of Erude. While the Hunters Guild has many locales under its jurisdiction, this collection of volcanic caves remains one of the more frustrating areas to keep tabs on. That is because it simply refuses to yield to the efforts of the guild. Scientists and scholars regularly return bruised, battered, and confused. Bizarre earthquakes and anomalous rumblings tantalize them, and yet all they find in the fiery pits and flooded caves is rock, bone, and beast. Any attempt to establish forward operating bases and camps past the initial landing have unceremoniously failed, ravaged by unpredictable monsters and tremors. The lava caverns do not give up their secrets easily. But despite this, the guild has been able to eke out a few morsels of knowledge. The lava caverns, as they have been mapped out so far, can be divided into three zones: the coast, the volcanic plateau, and the cave network. The coast consists of small, rocky beaches, sometimes adorned with bushels of greenery. Many water-dwelling creatures, such as the Ludroth or the Tetranodon, can be observed here. Besides that, there is little of interest at the coast. It simply serves as the landing spot of the guild. The volcanic plateau is much more intriguing. Its rocky plains are littered with ruins, ancient bridges and collapsed buildings now only inhabited by the occasional mealinks. Small lava streams, vestiges of the main volcano, make their way across this plateau, forming falls and rivers of molten death. Both the coast and the plateau offer many entrances into the cave network, the most mysterious aspect of the area. In these caverns, lava and water flow concurrently, with the eastern caves being full of magma while the western caves are downright flooded with water. This duality makes exploration difficult, but it seems nonetheless worth it. The caverns seem to be the source of this area's mysteries. Researchers investigating the odd tremors have noted that they seem to originate from within, but more worryingly, the caves seem to imbue passing monsters with an unusual degree of strength, vitality, and vigor. Thus, many of the already dangerous inhabitants of the area are empowered by the mysterious properties of the caves. One of the most abundant creatures to be found in this zone are especially annoying when agitated by the cave's mysterious aura. All across the lava caverns, particularly near water, one can find cyanotors. These blue carapaceons are a well-known nuisance here in the old world. They patrol many different environments, and in all of them, Their aggressive behavior and surprising speed makes them difficult to deal with. Here, in the lava caverns, the Cyanotors are rarely disturbed, as the experienced researchers avoid them at all costs. But due to their ability to hide in shallow water and even underground, some confrontations with the Carapaceons are inevitable. Cyanotors are fast and nimble, and their claws are sharp enough to do considerable damage. They also have a toxic spit that can cause fatigue and nausea in those affected by it. However, their small size and relative fragility makes them pests rather than true threats. Or rather, that would be the case if it weren't for the fact that common Cyanotors are actually all juveniles. Them being relatively small for monster standards is not a solace, but a warning. Because, while the precise timing and trigger is not yet understood, any one of these crabs could, and likely will, eventually grow into their much more imposing adult form. As they grow, they lose their toxic spit, and their heads and claws elongate significantly, turning them into a Shogun Cyanotor. This mature Carapaceon adopts a hermit crab lifestyle, constantly looking for shells and even giant wyvern skulls to protect its vulnerable backside. While a regular Cyanotor is a pest, a Shogun presents serious danger. While it may no longer be venomous, it gains many weapons to make up for that. Its elongated claws now fold in on themselves, allowing the Shogun to use them both in a short form and a long form. In their short form, Shogun claws are fast and mobile, and their moderately sharp edge serves as an effective blade of sorts. But their true power is unleashed in long form. Once unfolded, the ultra-sharp inner blade of the claw is revealed, and while the added length makes the claw a little slower, a single hit from this scythe can cleave prey in half effortlessly. Even if the attack doesn't immediately cause death, the small serrations on the blade's edge cause intense bleeding that will perish the victim shortly regardless. And despite its size, a Shogun Cyanotor is not much slower than its juvenile form, making it both fast and immensely deadly. Even distance doesn't guarantee safety. If the shell the Shogun chooses has an opening of any kind, it can urinate through it, which creates a massive pressurized water stream originating from its protected backside. And because of its strong, flexible legs, the Shogun can crawl onto any surface, including ceilings, making it especially hard to run away from it once it's agitated. The most effective way to repel a Shogun Cyanotor is to use explosives or blunt weapons to break or crack its shell. The creature's concern over its weak spot takes precedent over its aggression, and will often compel it to flee. Older Shoguns often also form a single, large pearl in their shells, so breaking it can be a valuable effort. The researchers of the lava caverns, however, were just happy to escape the fiend, and no attempts at retrieving the pearl have been or will be made. Out of the blue, I was knocked to the ground by a rumble from the earth. Mere volcanic activity, perhaps? Day 19. For every effect, there must be a cause. After a day of observation, I have identified a cycle in the tremors. The lava caverns are filled with dangerous creatures like this. Cyanotors patrol the waterfront, Kezu lingers in the dark, and Anjanaths stomp across volcanic rock. But that is to be expected. Volcano regions tend to attract the fiercest beasts of the lands. What makes the lava caverns special, besides the bizarre empowering effect they seem to have on monsters, is what they attract specifically. Because between the well-known wyverns and beasts, one species emerged that had long been considered too mysterious and rare to even investigate, a true specter of nature. It began with sightings of its young. small arachnids covered in a ball of white spider silk. These were arachnoids, and they indicated a severe shift in the environment, as they are the juveniles of the Arachnophobia. Arachnophobia were, at one point, so rare that it was a regular topic of debate within guild halls whether or not to simply declare the species as extinct. They were only ever sighted from afar, and were believed to live in areas so mountainous and so treacherous that no guild hunter could venture into their lair. Their appearance at and seeming migration into the lava caverns thus caused quite a stir, and on-site research began yielding results immediately. Arachnophobia belonged to the Temnocerans, a small group of spider-like monsters with very few members. They resemble household arachnids, with a few key differences. Their large pedipalps are made up of enriched metallic material, and work as defensive limbs that can deflect attacks. They can also be used for attacks. In one instance, a scholar watched Arachnophobia shatter a Rathalos tail in a single blow from these appendages. Their body is also full of curved spikes, protruding from the spider's exoskeleton. These spikes serve as anchors for silk. The Arachnophobia uses them to attach complex silk structures to its body, forming elaborate shrouds of concentrated silk that serves as a fairly durable suit of armor, able to withstand many different kinds of attacks. When fully armored, the silk resembles a bridal gown, a look that has earned this elusive creature much myth and folkloric reverence. Nothing about the Arachnophobia is, however, as bizarre as its life cycle. The core defining feature of this species is its immensely fast rate of reproduction. A fertilized Arachna egg can go from zygote to fully autonomous juvenile, arachnoid, in a matter of minutes. To achieve this, the Arachnophobia possesses a few truly odd adaptations. All large Arachnophobia are female, while the males are almost indistinguishable from a juvenile, simply having larger pedipalps. Males will flock to the large female and, if they can avoid getting eaten by their mate, dump all of their sperm into her at once, causing them to die of exhaustion in the process. Instead of letting the sperm fertilize her eggs immediately, the Arachnophobia stores the sperm for later use. This storage is contained in its lower abdominal section, which is called her glow gut, due to it emitting a soft yellow light at all times. This light is the result of an internal fire organ, used to keep the Arachna's body temperature as high as possible. Thanks to this body temperature and the stored sperm, the Arachnophobia can generate entire generations of offspring on demand, by letting the sperm fertilize her and growing the zygote rapidly due to the extreme heat catalyzing the growth process. This, essentially, creates a system that can create new arachnoids every couple of minutes if the Arachnophobia feels like it. This bizarre reproductive behavior informs the Arachnophobia's entire life. She is accompanied by her children at all times, which cling to her abdomen dutifully. In combat, the juveniles follow their mother's command, jumping off her in droves to attack her enemies. The Arachnophobia can use them to trap foes in silk, burn them with the juvenile's fiery breath, or even order her children to pull her around rapidly with their silk strings, allowing for fast and erratic movement. She can, however, also hold her own. The Arachnophobia can shoot sticky silk from her mouth, as well as let her glowgut expel flaming gas at will. She can even redirect those gases into her mouth to be spewed as a fiery beam, ignited through the spikes near her mouth. The Arachna's only weakness is that her silk armor is not indestructible. In fact, a prolonged fight will inevitably see that armor destroyed entirely at one point. If that happens, the Arachna's children immediately abandon their mother, prioritizing their survival. The Arachna must then quickly generate new children, which she does by creating a large egg sac out of silk to further speed up the process and protect her reproductive organs in this vulnerable situation. However, this uses so much of her silk that she can't produce her armor at the same time, leaving her and the egg sac fairly vulnerable nonetheless. This state thus presents a massive point of danger for the Arachnophobia, and has so far been the main way the researchers have been able to repel the monster should it interfere with the efforts. This phenomenon simply cannot be self-supported. I hypothesize that it is the creation of someone or something. Day 38. The pulse intensifies. I must curb my passion and make ready to begin fieldwork. The source awaits me. The appearance of the Arachnophobia heralded a sort of gold rush for the lava caverns. Suddenly, interest in the area grew significantly, as scholars raced to it in search of other rare and elusive creatures. If the Arachnophobia could emerge here, what else lies in these caverns? But unfortunately for them, the caverns did not become any easier to study the more people attempted to. The mysterious rumblings and rampaging monsters continued to impede even this more feverish attempt at discovery. But, amidst all that confusion, the guild did encounter something interesting. An entirely new creature, a subspecies of an already hard-to-find monster. The Magma Almudron. As a creature entirely defined by its relationship to humid swamps, finding an Almudron on the hot volcanic peninsula of Erude is a ridiculous notion. So ridiculous, in fact, that the first researcher to spot this subspecies tried to convince herself that it was merely a weirdly shaped agnactor. But further sightings confirmed that this was indeed a new kind of Almudron, a Magma Almudron. Noticeably smaller than the swamp species, the Magmadron is covered in a dark blue and purple carapace, which regularly turns bright red and orange when heated by the surrounding lava. How it lives among said lava was the first mystery that needed solving. How does a creature that is entirely reliant on moisture and muck migrate to a volcano? The answer, once discovered, seems so obvious in hindsight. The regular Almudron secretes a golden fluid which corrodes soil into mud, thus shaping its wet habitat. Now, if those glands were to secrete a more extreme substance, one that doesn't corrode but melt, it will be able to have a similar effect on rock. And that seems to be what happened with the Magmadron. Through natural selection, it seems to have evolved to secrete a volatile, superheated fluid that can turn rock into viscous magma at will. Once the rest of its body adapted to endure the scorching heat, many of the abilities that worked for the mud species continue to work even in this vastly different environment. The Magmadron can shape the land under it, create waves of magma, pillars of explosive lava rock, and even shape a hard, flaming magma ball in its tail, just like the swamp species can do with mud. This adaptation into a magma dweller doesn't seem to have concluded yet, however. While its scale armor is resistant enough to not let the heat disturb it, the Magmadron's hide does soften up when heated, similar to that of the Lavasioth. As a result, it is more vulnerable to physical attacks from other monsters or hunters, a weakness it compensates for by increased aggression. Day 39. We are in danger. All at once, monsters have appeared in droves. They are vicious. The camp is no longer safe. The hunters have advised me to vacate. Unfortunately, it seems I must abandon the investigation if I am to survive. The lava caverns truly are a thorn in the guild's backside. So many marvelous creatures, prospects of finding nearly extinct or even entirely new species, locked behind an earth that cannot stop shaking, and a horde of beasts that cannot stop ravaging. But the Hunters Guild isn't known to be easily discouraged. Expedition after expedition, investigation after investigation, the researchers pushed further and further into the area and were rewarded with many unique and mesmerizing sights. But one reward stood out. Witnessing a resurgence of Arachnophobia in the wild had been considered a small miracle, and would have been more than enough to satisfy most scholars on the topic. But, on the rocky fields of the lava caverns, researchers encountered an entirely new, never-before-seen subspecies of it, the Pyre Arachnophobia. While it may look drastically different, and is indeed, after genetic analysis, confirmed to be a distinct subspecies, the Pyre Arachnophobia actually only has very few distinct adaptations that the regular Arachna doesn't. Just like the regular Arachnophobia, the Pyre Arachna envelops itself in silk and relies on the aid of its children, in this case a subspecies of arachnoid called Pyrantulas. But the Pyre Arachna distinguishes itself through two key adaptations. Its silk is no longer pure white, but a deep, flaming orange, reflecting its new properties. This blast silk is highly explosive and flammable, but also more durable to physical stress. In addition to this, the Pyre Arachna has developed a sound organ in its throat, allowing it to produce a variety of vocalizations, which serve as instructions for its young. These two simple adaptations transform the Pyre Arachna into a true fiend, as command over its Pyrantulas combined with the new blast silk make for one nasty combination. Through its sound organ, the Pyre Arachna commands its young to create elaborate traps using its blast silk, closing off exits and building entire networks of explosive webbing. Then, using its massive pedipalps as flints, the Pyre Arachna can ignite the silk, which functions as fuses that detonate the young Pyrantulas in violent explosions. This gives the Pyre Arachnophobia extreme control over the battlefield, as she can produce and detonate living landmines whenever she pleases. The constant scorching, burning, and exploding has also slightly discolored its shell, giving it a more blackened coal look. The pulse and this anomaly may be related, but I have no way to corroborate that now. Further research is impossible. If someone out there would continue my research, venture into the beach cave. The answer should be there. Eventually, researchers did penetrate into the deepest depths of the caverns. They followed the pulse, the bizarre energy that permeated the creatures and empowered them further. Tracing it back to a cave at the beach, the expedition made the most important discovery of the region: a giant, fossilized elder dragon skeleton. Many of the anomalies in the area seem to originate from the spot this creature had died in. Initial reports suggest that this skeleton may have belonged to a celestial serpent, a mythical elder dragon species believed to be deities of wind and thunder. Perhaps, the scholars argued, its death released so much energy that it permanently altered the land, imbuing it with the power to shift and change itself and its inhabitants. After all, that is how the guiding lands of the New World came to be. Would it be so unlikely that something similar could happen here? Unfortunately, that report remains incomplete. The research efforts surrounding the lava caverns had to be aborted following increased monster attacks. Now, only hunters venture there. And yet, the mystique of the region remains lodged in many heads of the guild. A plane we could not conquer, a world we could not measure. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you learned something interesting or otherwise derived value from this video. I am always grateful to have you. A very special thank you to all of our patrons, which include Fictionape, Cini, Claire Miboun, Drexian, Geo, Jameson Tate, Makot02, Mr. Pyramid, Mr. Meander, Pidifuego, Person 212, Project Iceman, Vulgar Beast, Oak Wood Tree, Iron Camel, and Courage. Take care, my friends, and I will see you next time. Happy hunting.